Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Mega Man here, and once again I am back for the likes of the Mexty Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Metroid for the NES or Famicom Disk System for those of you who lived in Japan. So, last time we did manage to able to explore the rest of the forms of Norfair, and also we did manage to explore quite a bit for the likes of Ridley's lair. So, because of this though, today, in addition to the fact that today we're going to be hit on to the forms of the continuation of Ridley's lair, to able to take on the second boss fight in the game, which appears to be pretty obvious, it will be Ridley after all, but also we might as well able to actually finish the whole game. So, either way though, because chances are that we only got about quite a few collectibles left, and after this though, we'll be organized to able to prepare the final area in the game. So because of that though, yeah, let's get this thing to it. So of course, we still need to able to do some very tricky, difficult platforming, along with trying to dodge the insane amount of those enemies as we possibly could. And then every once in a while though, we will able to actually meet up with the good old friend that will be super iconic for the rest of the Metroid series. Here we have Ridley himself. And basically, out of all the bosses in the game, I think, relatively speaking, it's just, well, as you can tell, we're going to be still using missiles able to deal extra amount of damage to Ridley, but as far as I'm aware, I think he's pathetically easy, I'm not gonna lie, because all he does, he just stands there, jump quite a few times, and every once in a while that the fireballs were able to add some defenses all by himself, but there he goes. He is by far the easiest boss fight in the entire game, because I can definitely see why that most people go after him first, than the likes of how it does it in Kraid. So I can possibly understand why they're going up with the forms of the easiest boss first, and then the second boss fight afterwards. So yeah, that might be something worth knowing for. I do apologize for that particular opening door sound effect, because I'm pretty sure Proto Man just managed to able to go out of the bathroom or something like that. So anyways, here we have ourselves the final energy tank in the whole game. So in this case though, despite the fact that we haven't exactly increased our bar, because obviously I'm presuming that with the 6 square bars is the only maximum you can get up to. So in this case though, we've actually got every single energy tanks for right now. So because of that though, I think I actually lost count of how much health we've got in total. But either way though, it knows what it is. So anyway, so now we're done with that, and let's just go ahead and go for this room again after dealing with the forms of, oh jeez, those jumps are so picky sometimes. Although, thankfully, until whenever we get into Super Metroid or Metroid Fusion, and especially noticeable with Metroid Zero Mission, and even Metroid Dread and Samus Returns on the 3DS, then we can expect that makes the actual jumping mechanics a bit easier to work with. Although, there's only one thing I forgot to mention about for the majority of the forms of this particular playthrough. There's also, technically, another remake when it comes to Metroid 2. Although, relatively speaking, that there's the Samus Returns, which is the official Nintendo's version of that particular newer remake for the likes of Metroid 2, The Return of Samus, based on the Game Boy installment. And there's also for the likes of the fan remake, which appears to be by the forms of another Metroid 2 remake. So in this case, let's just say, if you want to call the game in short, AM2R. I'm guessing that's what it's called anyway. It's kind of unfortunate that particular remake got shut down or something like that due to the forms of Nintendo's restrictions and stuff like that. But either way though, I really do wish if I was going to give that game a shot, but unfortunately though, it's too late for now. But at the very least, we got ourselves the proper official remake, thanks to Nintendo remaking it on the 3DS. So, despite the fact that the visuals, well, it looks okay for the most part, but hopefully we'll talk more details about that whenever we get into Metroid Samus Returns, maybe at some point in the future years to come. So either way though, we can expect by this point. So, along with the forms of Metroid Prime Federation Force, in this case most people's hated Metroid games throughout the series, because it's very understandable, because, well, you get the idea about this is going. So anyway, today's day is of course the 24th of March today, in this case in 2022 today. Because, like I said this before, ever since on Tuesday, we've decided able to actually upload these kinds of videos in a different day, because it's pretty obvious, because obviously about the fact that in addition where, you know what I mean, when we decided able to finish Metroid, when it comes to the forms of this particular Thursday, and also that Ray the Flying Squirrel were able to actually go back onto Donkey Kong Land 2, for the likes of at the moment until tomorrow on Friday, but then hopefully the schedule will be back to its normal state until specifically next week. So that way, that Ray the Flying Squirrel will hopefully wrap things up everything for the likes of Donkey Kong Land 2, for the likes of the forms of, let's say, until on next Thursday, and then eventually, by that time until tomorrow anyway, that we'll finally able to actually get ourselves the brand new Kirby game, which appears to be Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So yeah, I can't even believe that tomorrow that game is gonna come out at long last, because I've been waiting for it for such a long while, after playing the demo quite a few times, well, at least back in the day that was, so yeah, you get the idea about that. So anyway, so as you can tell, we finally managed able to find ourselves the final missile expansion, and as a result, we've collected everything. So because of that, all we need to do now is the fact that we need to head back on to Brimstar right now, and because of that, since then we've already taken down not only Kraid, but also Ridley as well, so we can expect that we might as well able to finish up the game. So, but before we do that, we need to acquire a specific beam upgrade in order able to actually deal with the actual end game. So because of that though, because after all, we've been holding up the actual wave beam for such a long while, so because of that though, despite it's incredibly powerful, however though, it might be pretty useless in endgame, so because of that though, we're gonna have to able to backtrack for a bit, and then as a result though, that way we can able to actually just to go ahead and, well, you know what I mean, just finish the game like so. Excuse me, I've got something on my throat there, so I do apologize for that. So, I digress. And also on top of all that stuff, though, is the fact that, relatively speaking, that, again, we were expecting to able to actually decide to do, let's just say Mario Party 8, but, for specifically on this weekend, but it's gonna be delayed until, you know, like I said, we got to wait until on April, just in case for springtime, because, you know, seasonal Mario Party Let's Plays and all that stuff, ever since back in the forms have been, you know what I mean, 2 years ago and stuff like that, so, because, you know, back in the forms of 2 years ago, that, I'm pretty sure we did done, you know what I mean, Mario Party 10 and Mario Party 1 during the course of the summer, and then, in autumn/winter, we did Mario Party 2, and then during the course of last year in winter, then we did Mario Party 3, and on spring last year, we did Mario Party 4, and then in last year's summer, we did Mario Party 5, and, last year's autumn, we did Mario Party 6, and in this winter, we did Mario Party 7, or should I say, winter/spring, if any kinds of any sorts. So because of that though, yeah, you probably expect about this point. So anyways, let's head back on to North Fair quickly, and because of that though, we still need able to go all the way back higher up, so just in case we can able to actually go hop onto another elevator, which actually leads us to Brimstar, so we can, potentially speaking, we need to able to find ourselves the Ice Beam, although you can also find the Ice Beam on the likes of the forms of, North Fair, but, I found it a little bit confusing at times, especially noticeable when you're trying to figure out, where you're supposed to go without any map whatsoever, so because of that though, yeah, you probably expect it by this point. So, anyway, and I suppose another thing I should probably explain about this as well is the fact that, yes, happy 10th anniversary of one of the greatest episodes in terms of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Season 2, which appears to be Hurricane Fluttershy, because, well, that episode is way awesome, especially noticeable because, well, you know what I mean. So because of that though, and like I said before, that tomorrow Kirby and the Forgotten Land for the Nintendo Switch will be releasing tomorrow, so expecting that we can able to actually decide able to do the Let's Play of that game at some point, not this Friday though, because, well, it seems pretty obvious about the fact that Ray the Flying Squirrel will be eventually be coming back onto Donkey Kong Land 2 until tomorrow, and then, like I said before, until next week, that the uploading schedules list will be back to its normal state again, so that might be an ordeal when it comes to likely doing something like this, so yeah, you get the idea about that. So anyway, so let's go ahead and keep on using screw attacks, just in case we can able to actually keep on, you know, climbing up and all that jazz while trying to able to avoid an insane amount of those enemies as we could. So, because yeah, today's day is of course the 24th of March today, so that's why I explained about the fact that I can't even believe Hurricane Fluttershy episode is now 10 years old. So by that time, until next week, I believe, is the fact that one of those episodes, Ponyville Confidential, will be also 10 years old until next week, I guess, for specifically by the end of March. So, and eventually though, that we will able to actually see Mystery of the Friendship Express episode will be 10 years old as well until 2 weeks time. And also, on top of all that stuff though, the Canterlot Wedding Parts 1 and 2, also the 10th anniversary of those amazing episodes. So, yeah, that's pretty much about it. So, yeah, here we are, back onto the forms of Brimstar again, after the events of, well, a couple of days ago, after dealing with a whole lot of exploration when it comes to not only Norfair, but also, Ridley's lair, so we can able to actually just to get those places done before we, you know, reach the end game portion of the game. And after we're done with this, well, we can assure you about the fact that the next Metroid Let's Play we can decide to do, and that will have to be by the forms of Metroid 2, The Return of Samus, basically. So hopefully we're able to actually get the rest of the series until maybe possibly until when, you know what I mean, Metroid Prime 4 will be on its way to the Nintendo Switch. But we don't know exactly when though still, because obviously with this unknown release date, as well as the forms of which specific platforms they're going to be going to, I'm pretty sure it might be still possible. It might actually be on the Switch for its playing on the go, or maybe on the next gen Nintendo console in the future, most notably when it gets to the point until 2024, if possible. But either way though, we'll just see what happens there, and during at some point about 2 years time. I mean god, that will take a very long time to predict right now. So anyways, let's head in here to you know, go ahead and fetch ourselves the ice beam. So, oh jeez, there's a lot of frame rate drops here and there, and especially noticeable about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, there's not much else I can honestly try to think about it. Oh yeah, something's worth mentioning for this point as well, I guess, is the fact that with the password system in mind, although there are some interesting passwords they obviously managed to include, mind you, I haven't exactly looked upon it that much though, because, well, I just couldn't be bothered. And also, there are some very weird passwords that usually somehow it gets like some strong language passwords, which I'm probably not going to mention for this video, just because, well, I just don't want to get myself a copyright strike, or to be more specifically, don't want to get my video removed by saying that specific word. So because of that, I can't be bothered able to say that. But I believe apparently though, one of those passwords were able to actually instantly gives you a bad ending immediately. So I can assure you about the fact that, well, if you try to insert the actual offensive word onto that password, then obviously we get ourselves the worst ending, which I'm pursuing to you that, well, I'm sure that Ray the Flying Squirrel will talk more details about that until when he goes back on to the likes of Donkey Kong Land 2, basically. So there we go, folks. There goes the forms of the wave beam, because obviously there's no usage of that anymore, despite the fact that it's super powerful and everything, don't get me wrong. But we got to move on to ice beam, so because of that though, we're able to use the ice beam to finish up the main game. So because of that though, we are basically now going to be moving on to the final area in the game. Well, after traversing through the rest of the forms of Brimstar, basically. So thankfully with the high jump boost, now we can able to actually jump a bit higher to get out of the pit, so that way we can able to actually make everything else a lot easier. Well, until the end anyway though, because either way though, for the rest of Brimstar, alongside with the forms of Kraid's lair, and even especially noticeable with Norfair sometimes, especially noticeable with the forms of Ridley's lair, then those areas might actually be a total cakewalk right now, especially noticeable after fully upgrading ourselves to maximum potential, so that way we can have ourselves an easier time with the majority of the game now. So, but I digress. So, oh jeez, I hate the knockback on this sometimes. That's the only thing I think I've already mentioned about this, I suppose. But let's just grab some more health pickups, potentially. And as well as from that, the screw attack really helps out for the majority of the game now, because if you have a hard time trying to avoid those enemy encounters, then luckily if you're trying to able to utilize the screw attack, then you can obviously just manage to able to get yourselves a pretty good chance to able to actually deal with a lot of enemies if you somehow go into a bull form with that jump. So, in fact, kind of think about it though, that does almost reminds me of the forms of Super Mario Bros. 3 if you come across into a Starman. So because of that though, you'll be invincible for not as long as I used to be, but regardless of such though, because every time you jump, that's he does like a flip jump. So yeah, it seems kind of crazy, doesn't it? So, and I think this is the wrong way, because I'm presuming that's the way to, I would say towards at the Chozo statue that actually contains like a long beam. So yeah, I guess that's pretty super obvious. So anyways, let's go all the way higher up to the top of this blue shaft, and because of that though, after doing with a lot of climbing, then we'll soonly come across into this particular blue door that we haven't exactly approached to yet. So it's a good thing we actually saved this room for last, because obviously we need to get ourselves our, you know, fully upgraded health, as well as, you know, missiles, ammo count, and also just get our barrier suit just in case for its defense mode. So yeah, after going for this room in particular with all kinds of respawn enemies and all that stuff, and despite the fact I just got hit right there because of my jumps doesn't seem to work with me half the time, but hopefully though we'll won't be having that much issues, I guess. So anyways, oh jeez, a lot of slowdown in this place. But thankfully though, we've made it to the end and just used the missiles 5 times to able to open up the red door. And as you can see, we got ourselves these statues of not only well, Kraid, but also Ridley as well. And if you shoot those two statues together while they start flashing, basically that'll open up the bridge, which actually leads us to the final area of the game known as Tourian. So because of that though, here we go, onto the final frontier of the forms of Metroid. So yeah, let's see how this place is gonna bring us into. So I will show to you this. Oh god! These are called Metroids, as you can see, and because of that though, if you come across into one, it's a good thing we've only managed to equip the Ice Beam to do this, because in order to able to deal with those Metroids, despite the fact that those creatures are by far the most dangerous creatures in the game, so because of this though, in order to deal with them, you have to freeze them with the Ice Beam, so it's super easy and self-explanatory, and to kill them off, you have to be able to use the missile in order to finish them off, because with the actual regular Ice Beam projectile might not work because, well, despite the fact that you're might as well able to freeze up a little bit. So anyways, and as you can see, we're stumbling across these new colored doors, which this time around it appears to be the yellow doors. And basically, in order to open those up, you have to fire about roughly 10 missiles. So yeah, it's a good thing we actually got ourselves a lot of missile expansions, because if you don't grab those at all, then you're basically deadlocked. Well, to be more specifically, you're about to be able to... Well, the good thing about this, though, is the fact that those Metroids, if every time you kill them, sometimes it can either give you either a bigger amount of health, or bigger amount of missiles that you can able to actually re-grab them again. So yeah, it's a pretty good way that you can able to actually farm for not only more health, but also more missiles as well. So because of that though, yeah, you probably expect it by this point. So, although, the only thing is worth noting for is the fact that the most annoying obstacle in this world though, which appears to be by the forms of those stupid little ring projectile things. I'm not exactly sure what these things are called, because sometimes they appear out of nowhere, and most of the time though it's pretty unavoidable sometimes. And even it gets a bit irritating until whenever we get to the last boss in the game. So in this case though, we can able to actually just took some bit of damage right here, so yeah, this place is going to be filled to the brim with a lot of those deadly stuff. You know, just like the forms of how it does it in Zelda 1, from the likes of the forms of Death Mountain, which in this case, the final dungeon in that game, The Legend of Zelda, the original game, because of Ganon's dungeon, is going to be like, filled to the brim with like, you know, enemies, as well as the forms of a lot of emphasis on dead ends. If you manage to lose track of yourself, are able to find, you know what I mean, the correct path and all that stuff. But regardless of such though, that I think if I recall correctly, that we're pretty much almost at the end of this point. So, well, after dealing with more bunch of Metroids and all that stuff, so we can able to use the missile to blast that red door. And I think this might actually be the last room before the final boss of the game. So yeah, we can expect that we're actually getting pretty close now, huh? And yeah, that's what happens right there. That if the Metroid is managed able to caught you, and then basically he decides to able to suck your energy. So because of that, in order to break out of it though, is the fact that you have to constantly use the actual Morph Ball while trying to use the Morph Ball Bomb, and then basically you can get out of it. So, but I think the best strategy while dealing with those Metroids is the fact that you have to be so slow, and plus don't go too fast, because if you've been too fast, then obviously you get caught off guard with these Metroids. So I think I should say these are pretty easy to deal with, and they are pretty easy to handle. So, well, despite the fact that they come out of nowhere by just jump scaring you as soon as you approach to the next screen. So, and I was very lucky enough that I didn't get sucked up. So yeah, that seems kind of cool. So anyways though, I think this is the final door that actually leads us to the final boss in the game. Oh jeez, got surrounded by all kinds of lasers and all that stuff, but I'm not prepared for that yet, because I think I need to regain, please be health, thank you, because that way it'll help me out to take on the final boss in the whole entire game, which appears to be, well, after dealing with a serious amount of those little door gates, that in order to get rid of these door gates is the fact that you have to use the missiles the whole time, and that way you have to be fast on it too, because if you don't be too fast on it though, those gates will regenerate. So keep that in mind, you have to be fast on it. So if you're following from my Let's Play of NES Remakes 2, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So anyways, let's go in. Oh my god, there's a lot of lag going on in this particular final boss, but to be expected though, this is the end game obviously, so we can able to actually get this done as fast as we possibly could. So, and of course that there are some, you know, missile shots, or in this case some of these little very annoying projectile shots, and as well from that, those annoying rings are about to hinder you throughout the majority of the fight. So, I think the worst example of this is those God-forsaken rings, because Jesus Christ, they spawn everywhere. Serious folks, here's the final boss in Metroid, which appears to be none other than Mother Brain. So in this case, we have to able to take the actual bit of a glass down, and then after you see that little hole over there that you usually saw, that we actually already break in the actual glass that actually provides Mother Brain to able to get protected, it's your chance to able to actually use the missile to deal the massive amount of damage on her, and that way, after a certain amount of hits, then obviously that way we can able to instantly KO her. Although, again, the annoying thing about this fight though is of course those very stupid picky ring you know, projectile attack, which as a result though, I think the Ice Beam might help out, but I rarely use the Ice Beam as much as the forms of the next few games in the series. But either way though, let's go and deal with even more missile shots on her. So I think she was about to be done. Well, despite the fact that this boss fight might took a while to able to actually just defeat her, despite the fact that, well, if you die on this particular final boss, well, I'm pretty sure luckily for you, that you managed to able to respawn back into the beginning of Tourian, and then luckily for you, you can still have the ability to able to actually just to regain our, you know, not only missiles and also some health pickups, but either way, there she goes. But if you think this is done, well, we got ourselves a Self-Destruct Sequence, which means we have to go all the way up to the top before the time runs out. So, if the time runs out, and if you don't make it in time, well, instant game over. So, you have to be fast, and especially noticeable on this ending portion, as you can see, we have to go for a serious amount of those tiny platforms. So, yeah, it's gonna be pretty tricky though, especially noticeable with the actual jumping physics and all that stuff in mind. So, yeah, this is definitely kind of tricky, but hopefully though, until the sequels anyway, then we can able to expect to make this section a lot easier, so yeah, you get the idea, because those platforms are, you know, pretty small if you're trying to able to navigate through those. But anyways, I think we made it to the top, and there's the final elevator in the game, which pretty much leads us to the escape. So, there we go, folks. Great. You fulfilled your mission. It will revive peace in space, but it may be invaded by the other Metroid. Pray for a true peace in space. Okay then. So, if you beat the game fast enough, to be more specifically for about under 3 hours, oh my gosh! She's a female! Or, it's It's a girl. Wow. That was a pretty shocking thing back in the day, because usually people keep on expecting that Samus was a male, but it turns out if you beat the game fast enough for under 3 hours, then basically you get yourselves a female Samus character. So because of that, that was actually pretty cool, which as a result though, she's not a damsel in distress, unlike Princess Peach, or some cases Princess Zelda, but regardless of such though, that is a pretty cool reveal back in the day. So yeah, it seems pretty obvious that I keep on hitting she because, well, you know what I mean. So yeah, let's give my final thoughts of Metroid, the one that started it all when it comes to the Metroid series. For the first game in the series, it did age okay enough, but first of all, the visuals do look really good for its time, despite how the fact that it's pretty odd in some places. And also the music is kind of iconic, especially noticeable because of Burnstar, as well as the forms of Norfair, and even not to mention though with Burnstar Depths, or Brinstar Depths, as far as that's been concerned, because those remakes will be brought back to the likes of Super Smash Bros. Games, basically. So, and also the controls, well, it does take some bit of time to get used to, and the gameplay looks pretty dang good, even especially noticeable in the first game in the series. It's actually not too bad. Although there are some questionable archaic design choices here and there, such as for instance the lack of map, as well as the forms of how the fact that the controls on jumping can be felt a bit quite finicky at times, but apart from those aside things though, it's a good start of the forms of the Metroid series. It might not be my favorite Metroid games, but either way though, certainly it's a good start of the series. So, anyways, that pretty much leads us to the end kind of syndrome on this credits, and if we press the start button, well, if you think to yourself that actually leads you back to the title screen, well, if you press the start button when the end actually shows up, we start the game as a new Game Plus. In addition to that, we can also manage able to play the human version of Samus, and also not to mention though, you're able to actually access to every single abilities throughout the game that you've got throughout the majority of the first playthrough. So in this case, you still got the screw attack, and you've got the ice beam, and the long beam, and of course the high jump. So yeah, that's actually super dope and everything. However though, the only exception to this though is the fact that as you notice that we've actually restarted our progressioning for not only missile expansions, but also health pickups as well, so in this case energy tanks. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much about it when it comes to that particular extra feature. If you managed able to beat the game once, then you sure enough you're able to play as the human version of Samus. So yeah, that was it, ladies and gentlemen. That was our Let's Play of Metroid. So I hope you guys do enjoy this particular short playthrough. So in this case, I'm Mega Man from the likes of the Maxi Toys. Up next, in terms of our Metroid series of retrospective of games, next up it will be Metroid 2 Return of Samus for the Game Boy. So this will be interesting to say the least. So I'll see you guys at some point soon enough. Bye.